Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving into the unique and strictly regulated world of modal verbs. If you've ever tripped up over these tiny little words, hey, you're definitely not alone. We're going to treat them like the special forces of the English language. They're elite, they follow a highly specific set of rules, and they can completely change the mission, or in this case, the meaning, of a sentence in an absolute instant. Let's get right into it. Here's our training manual for today. First, we'll meet the special forces of English. Then we'll lock down the golden rules, uncover their meanings and superpowers, and finally, deploy them in advanced modal combinations. Section 1. The special forces of English. Unlike your everyday action verbs, like run, jump, or eat, modals are highly specialized operators. Their entire job is to change the mood, the certainty, or the intent of the main verb they're attached to. And the very first thing you gotta know about them, they are followed entirely by the base form of the main verb. For example, she can swim. Notice how incredibly clean that is? No extra words, just the modal can and the base verb swim. Super efficient. All right, section 2, the golden rules and their strict restrictions. This perfectly illustrates our first golden rule. Modals flat out refuse to take an S in the third person singular. Think about a normal verb, right? We say he runs or she plays. But modals, they completely reject that letter S. So the correct form is always he must leave now. We never, ever say he musts leave now. They are literally immune to that third person S. Furthermore, they absolutely refuse to work with auxiliary verbs like do, does, or did to form questions or negatives. They operate entirely on their own. If you want to ask a question, you just invert the subject in the modal. Can you help me? Boom, perfectly executed. Or for a negative, she cannot drive. But if you throw in, do you can help, yeah, that is a massive grammatical red flag. Modals don't need backup from do. They handle the heavy lifting all by themselves.
What's really fascinating here is that modals only have one form. This means they completely reject infinitives, gerunds, participles, or literally any ing endings. You can never say to can, or musting, or shoulded. Can is good to go. To can? Absolutely not. They are essentially frozen in their base operational state.
Now, because they lack past or future forms on their own, you have to tag in alternative expressions when you want to shift the timeline. If you need to express the ability to do something in the future, you can't just say, I will can. Instead, you swap in an alternative like I will be able to help. Or say you need to talk about an obligation in the past. Must isn't going to work. You swap it for she had to leave early. It's all about knowing exactly which substitute to call in. So I mentioned earlier that most modals are followed directly by a bare infinitive without the word to. Think of you should study more. But as with all special operations, there are exceptions. You absolutely must memorize these specific rebels that strictly require the word to. Ought to, have to, be able to, and used to. So you wouldn't say you ought apologize. You have to say you ought to apologize. The crucial point here is that only one modal verb can be used before the main verb. You literally cannot stack these special forces on top of each other. Phrasing like she might can come is totally incorrect because you're trying to jam two true modals together. Instead, we force them to cooperate by combining one true modal, like might, with a semi-modal phrase like be able to. So she might be able to come. Much better. Moving on to section 3, meanings and superpowers. Because context is key. This impressive spectrum of meanings really shows how these tiny verbs can express a massive range of human intent. I mean, just look at this. They cover everything from ability and possibility all the way down to necessity and deduction. To express possibility, you might say she may arrive late. But to express strong obligation, you deploy a completely different modal. You must wear a seatbelt. The entire tone of your sentence hinges entirely on exactly which of these operators you select. Let's see how a single modal verb's entire meaning shifts dramatically just by changing the context of the sentence. Notice how we use the exact same word, can, in two totally different ways. Can you swim? Here, can is investigating ability. But then, can I leave now? Suddenly, can is asking for permission. Same exact word, but the context activates a totally different superpower. Modals are also the ultimate diplomats. They're frequently deployed to instantly make your language softer, less demanding, and honestly just much more polite. Instead of a blunt command like, help me, you use a modal. Could you help me? It instantly softens the request. Or instead of, do you want coffee, you elevate the politeness by asking, would you like some coffee? Mastering this little trick turns you into a highly effective communicator. In spoken English, when modals go negative, they almost always contract into snappy, streamlined forms. So instead of saying cannot, we just say can't. Will not becomes the highly irregular won't. And you've also got couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't, and mustn't. Using these contractions is absolutely vital for sounding natural and conversational. But you gotta be careful because choosing the wrong negative can be disastrous for your message. Consider this. You mustn't smoke here means something is strictly prohibited. It is a firm command not to do something. On the flip side, you don't have to come just means it's totally optional. It's not necessary, but you can if you want to. Confusing these two could lead to some very awkward misunderstandings, for sure. Finally, Section 4, Advanced Modal Combinations. Let's look at some grammar formulas. Remember a minute ago when we said they can't be stacked? Well, here is the official workaround. When it is absolutely necessary to convey a complex, layered meaning, you pair a true modal with a semimodal. Take the phrase, you will have to wait. Will is our true modal, looking at the future, while have to is our semimodal, showing obligation. Together, they create a perfectly legal advanced grammatical structure. When you break it down into formulas, you really see their ultimate flexibility. By using have and be, we can shift modals into the past, make them passive, or show actions in progress. The perfect structure lets you look back. She must have forgotten. The passive structure flips the focus. The report must be finished today. And for ongoing actions, the continuous formula step in, like she may be sleeping. Or for the past, he must have been working. It's basically grammatical math, and the formulas work every single time. Given how drastically these special forces shape the meaning and tone of everything we say, take a moment to ask yourself, if a single modal verb can change a sentence from a polite request to a strict demand, are you using the right ones? Wielding them with the precision they require definitely takes practice, but once you master their rules, you have absolute control over your communication. Keep this training manual handy, and you'll never misuse these elite verbs again. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.